canceled, but we'll go ahead and get started. I think we just had a quorum walk in the door, so Mr. Secretary, please call roll.
Representative Blanton. Here. Representative Bojanowski. Representative Bratcher.
Here.
Representative Dietz.
Here.
Representative Dossett. Representative Freeland. Here. Representative Fugit.
Here.
Representative Gooch. Representative Hart. Representative Johnson.
Here.
Representative Cook.
Here.
Representative Lewis. Representative Maddox.
Here.
Representative Massaroni. Representative Proctor.
Here.
Representative Raymer.
Here.
Representative Stalker.
Present.
Representative Stevenson. Representative Tackett Lafferty. Representative Wesley. Vice Chair Sharp.
Present.
Chair Thomas.
Present. Did we make it? All right. We do have a quorum briefly. I'm going to leave rolls open because I know some of y'all are going to be going through trapdoors and everything else to record votes. We have 4 committee meetings going on at the same time this morning, so we will keep the rolls open. All right. I ask everyone, we're going to go ahead and do the Pledge of Allegiance, and Brother Fugit is going to lead us in prayer if you want to remain standing.
Let's pray together. Heavenly Father, thank you for a brand new day that you've allowed us to live. And Lord, the Bible says this is the day that you've made. We will rejoice and be glad in it. Thank you for this opportunity to serve you and to serve our people. Please watch over our military, our first responders, and all those that are protecting us today and working today. Please be with them and guide them. And guide us, Lord, in our decisions. Give us your wisdom, and may we please you in all we do. We ask it in Jesus' name. Amen.
All righty. We have, please, Representative Raymer, if you and your guest want to come up, we have a really neat, distinguished guest here today, and so glad to have you. Senator Turner, appreciate you making it there. Appreciate that. All right. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have Don Jenkins here with me today. He resides in Butler County, where I represent, and he is Medal of Honor recipient. And I believe he's the only Medal of Honor recipient living in Kentucky at this time. So I'm going to read the citation from his Medal of Honor citation. And honestly, each time I've read this, it's hard not to tear up when you read the things that he did to receive this medal. So I'm gonna read this to everyone. For conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity in action at the risk of his life above and beyond the call of duty, Special Sergeant Jenkins, Company A, distinguished himself while serving as a machine gunner on a reconnaissance mission. When his company came under heavy crossfire from an enemy complex, Special Sergeant Jenkins unhesitantly maneuvered forward to a perilously exposed position and began placing suppressive fire on the enemy. When his own machine gun jammed, he immediately obtained a rifle and continued to fire into the enemy bunkers until his machine gun was made operative by his assistant. He exposed himself to extremely heavy fire when he repeatedly both ran and crawled across open terrain to obtain resupplies of ammunition until he had exhausted all that was available for his machine gun. Displaying tremendous presence of mind, he then armed himself with 2 anti-tank weapons and by himself maneuvered through the hostile fusillade to within 20 meters of an enemy bunker to destroy that position. After moving back to the friendly defensive perimeter long enough to secure yet another weapon, a grenade launcher, Special Sergeant Jenkins moved forward to a position providing no protection and resumed placing accurate fire on the enemy until his ammunition was again exhausted. During this time, he was seriously wounded by shrapnel. Undaunted and displaying great courage, he moved forward 100 meters to aid a friendly element that was pinned down only a few meters from the enemy. This he did with complete disregard for his own wound, and despite having been advised that several previous rescue attempts had failed at the cost of the life of one and the wounding of others. Ignoring the continuing intense fire and his painful wounds, and hindered by darkness, he made 3 trips to the beleaguered unit, each time pulling a wounded comrade back to safety. Special Sergeant Jenkins' extraordinary valor, dedication, and indomitable spirit inspired his fellow soldiers to repulse the determined enemy attack and ultimately to defeat the larger force. Special Sergeant Jenkins' risk of his life reflect great credit upon himself, his unit, and the U.S. Army.
That is so awesome.
And he remains very involved with veterans organizations. He travels around and speaks at wounded warriors, and I know he's very involved all over the U.S.
Well, we really appreciate you being here, sir, and it's such an honor to be around you, and you're welcome to say anything, but I know you're so humbled from the things that you do, but feel free if you'd like. The floor is yours, sir.
Well, I want to thank y'all for having me up here, Representative Raymer for inviting me up, and that I know y'all have a busy day, but the citation is kind of glossy. There's a lot of things that happened that, that it didn't happen, and so on and so forth, Just a little preview here, if you got just a minute.
Oh, we do. As much time as you'd like.
I'm the only guy that never got an Article 15. One morning from an 06 colonel, busted PFC to private, and then that afternoon we went out and sat down this U-shaped ambush and got into this firefight, and back in the same hospital the next morning, and the captain there says, well, I know you wounded. What about your butt? I said, well, you better check that too. I said, that colonel, he chewed on me quite a bit. So anyway, he says, I'm going to squash that Article 15 and put you in for the Medal of Honor. And he says, by the way, he says, you're a staff sergeant now. So but anyway, that's my story.
We like the rest of the story there. That's the part that wasn't in that speech. Go ahead, Representative Johnson.
I just want to say thank you for all that you do, and I bet you earned that Medal of Honor, and I bet you earned that Article 15.
Yes, it did.
So I'm sure that you wear both of them proudly.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other members like to comment or anything? Well, what we'd love for you to do is Representative Raymer has something for you. If you and her would step into the front, and can we get pictures there or so? And then I'm going to ask if all committee members, we have 2 or 3, I think. Did Senator Adams leave right now? We at least have 2, Senator Turner and Dean, and in case we're all going to come and join around them and get a big group photo with them also. So we'll start with this one, and then we can come, and senators, y'all are welcome to join in. I see Representative Tate out there. She is too, and we'll get one big group photo. So if y'all want to flip around and let her take a picture and presentation there.
Don and I spent a lot of time together, and don't let him fool you. What he did was unbelievable. Unbelievable. You are a hero, sir. A hero. One veteran to another. 67, 69.
What unit were you in, sir? Mr. Jenkins, what unit were you in?
68, 69,
What unit?
9th Division,
9th Division?
Yeah.
Okay.
all the way down south and then become Delta.
Did Senator Adams come back in? I don't see her right now. We will. Senator Dean, do you care to jump ahead of her? And why don't you come on up? And we're going to go out of order just a little bit. We'll start with Senate Bill 119. And please, you know the routine, but make sure that light's on. And please have your guests introduce themselves. Make sure that green light's on.
Senator Matt Deneen. I represent the 10th District.
I'm Caroline Rochelle. I'm the Chief Executive Officer with the Children's Advocacy Centers of Kentucky.
And I'm Meg Savage. I'm Chief Legal Officer with the Kentucky Coalition Against Domestic Violence.
Mr. Chairman, committee members, Senate Bill 119 is a clarification bill. It does clean up some language in some different statutes as it relates to sexual assault and sexual contact and sexual abuse. Currently, Kentucky is one of the poorest ranking states in our country. And I believe if we're going to change those rankings, we must start with legislation. Giving our attorneys, giving our judges the opportunity to prosecute and defend those victims and prosecute the perpetrators. So what Senate Bill 119 does, it clearly defines the terminology and statutes related to sexual assault, and it adds uniformed language bringing DVO's statutes in line with IPO statute. The bill addresses an issue, again, that has our state poorly ranked. I've had several questions not several, but a few questions as it relates to how this came about. It came about from a constituent of mine who was the victim of sexual abuse. And it also came from a family court judge who was having a difficult time in assigning IPOs and DVOs in this case. There was one particular court case, the Court of Appeals in Castle versus Castle. It assumed that the term sex abuse in this section only referred to the crime of sex abuse. However, if you compare DVOs and IPOs, you can see in KRS 456 that the General Assembly used a different term, sexual assault, and then stated that it referred to sex crimes in KRS 510 and incest in KRS chapter 530. So you can see there was a lot of different definitions, and it was unclear on how to go forward. So I believe this bill broadens the term of sexual contact so it is less ambiguous and better captures what sexual contact really is. It avoids two different definitions of sexual abuse, and this will help both child and adult victims of this type of behavior. Again, it brings the DVO statutes in line with IPO statutes with uniformed language. By adding sexual assault to the DVO statute and defining it and deleting the term sexual abuse, it clarifies that the behavior for which a DVO could be granted is far more broad than just sexual abuse, as defined in the criminal code, of which, because it has never been defined in the DVO statute, it has caused confusion. This bill simply clarifies that language. As a former elementary principal, I struggle and have had to deal with a lot of children that are unfortunate victims of sexual abuse. As it was stated before, when it comes to sexual gratification, many defense lawyers were simply reinserting that abuse to these child victims while they're on the stand. I believe by broadening the definitions when it comes to sexual abuse, sexual contact, what this does, it really helps prevent that child victim from taking what they have to verbalize when it comes to sexual gratification from the witness box right back to the sandbox. This bill helps in that manner. It helps to prevent those things from happening on a broader scale. So we use best practices. I talked to attorneys, Commonwealth attorneys. I talked to family court judges. There was a committee substitute and a floor amendment that were all brought by Commonwealth attorneys and attorneys to clarify language, to clarify definitions, to make sure this bill was right. And I brought with me today two very knowledgeable people, and I would ask for their comments at this time.
All right. I'll jump in. For those of you that are
Make
not
sure that mic's on if you would.
is it
Or pull it
about that?
closer. Yeah, that's perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. For those of you who are not familiar with Children's Advocacy Centers, we provide forensic interviews, medical exams, mental health services, and advocacy to child victims of abuse. About 63% of the cases we see are sexual abuse, and we served over 7,500 children last year. So we interviewed a lot of child victims of abuse and have a lot of experience listening to children make disclosures. And I just want to add to what Senator Deneen said, with a couple of sort of practical comments about how this plays out for our children. So there's a couple big issues. Number one is the current definition of sexual contact, again, just requires us to document and prove sexual gratification. And we don't always know why a perpetrator abuses, but what we do know for sure is that there are a number of reasons. It could be sexual gratification, or it could be a number of other issues. It could be humiliation. It could be revenge. It could be punishment. It could be something else, right? And so there are a number of potential reasons why a perpetrator might commit this act of abuse. And then the other big issue is when you're interviewing a child. Imagine a child, 7 or 8 years old. They may not be able to comprehend or articulate what happened very well, and they also, in particular, when it comes to documenting sexual gratification. And so our specialists and interviewers at a Children's Advocacy Center will ask sensory type questions. And so, for example, a child might say, well, that they heard some noises or something like that, and that will allow a prosecutor to infer that there might be sexual gratification in that case. So you can imagine those conversations are difficult. It's a very difficult thing to document for a child or for anyone. And so what this law does is it removes the requirement that you have to prove sexual gratification and allows there to be other purposes, right? So again, revenge or humiliation or punishment or something else. And so that's an improvement on this law. And we just really appreciate Senator Deneen taking on this important issue. It's an important one for our children. And as he mentioned, it re-traumatizes our children when we put them through that experience again. And so I appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Motion on the bill.
We have a motion and a second. Did you see where it came? Massaroni? Okay. All right. Any members have any questions or anything or comments? Representative Blanton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a clarification here. In sexual contact, we're talking about even touching of clothing can be considered sexual contact. And then we come down to punishment. Number 3, and we strike out all the language of punishment. I just want to make sure that by touching of the clothing and punishment, if someone's getting spanked by the hand, is that going to be then considered?
No, sir. Thank you for that question. It has to be for the purpose of sexual gratification. and so it's not, or sexual abuse. It's not just for spanking or those things. So that would not fall under this.
Okay, just want to make sure. Believe
Yes,
it or
sir.
not, some parents still spank their children.
Oh, yes, sir. I agree.
All right, Representative Dietz.
Thank you. I appreciate the senator bringing this. I know my family court judges reached out to me at the beginning of the week worried that we were not going to be. So I thank him for that. And I would also, just as a family law attorney, say how many times that I've had clients come to me and describe things like maybe they're taking showers, things of that nature where there's not touching and there's not penetration. So this was very much needed. So I thank you.
Representative Stalker.
I just want to say thank you so much for bringing this forward. I'm glad that it was able to be heard. As a former foster parent with this state for 6.5 years, we have a real problem on our hand here. We are number 1 in the nation for child abuse here. And it is really important that we expand any type of policies and legislations to protect children. And that's what this does, and I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Right, I see no others. We're going to go ahead and vote while we have so many members real quick here. So, Mr. Secretary, please call roll.
Representative Blanton.
Aye.
Representative Bojanowski.
Yes.
Representative Bratcher.
Yes.
Representative Dietz.
Yes.
Representative Dossett.
Yes.
Representative Freeland.
Yes.
Representative Fugit.
Yes.
Representative Gooch. Representative Hart. Representative Johnson.
Yes.
Representative Cook.
Yes.
Representative Lewis. Representative Maddox.
Yes.
Representative Massaroni.
Yes.
Representative Proctor.
Yes.
Representative Raymer.
Yes.
Representative Sharp.
Aye.
Representative Stalker.
Yes.
Representative Stevenson. Representative Tackett Lafferty. Representative Wesley. Chair Thomas.
Aye. Passes unanimous. I wish I could say it'd be on consent, but hey, don't count us out yet. We've done consent once this year. Maybe it'll come back there. So,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, committee.
hey, appreciate y'all being here. All right, this leads, I'm going to go ahead and Senator Adams, if you want to come up, we're going to go ahead and put you next because I think yours ties in a little bit with Senator Deneen's there. So,
Thank you.
good to see you, Secretary.
The seat's all warm.
All righty.
Yeah, you go first.
I think all of y'all have been here enough. Do you know about the green lights? And please go ahead and introduce your guest for the record there.
Thank you. I am Julie Rocky Adams, and I represent Senate District 36.
Good morning. I'm Michael Adams, Secretary of State.
Jennifer Sketchfield, Assistant Secretary of State.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, good morning. We're here to talk about Senate Bill 79, the Safe at Home Act. Kentucky has one of the highest rates, and in some surveys, the highest rate of domestic violence in our nation. That is sickening, sad, and terrifying. What's even worse is that government facilitates this through unnecessary publication of individuals' physical addresses. When a victim decides to leave and find a safe place, often her abuser is able to find her, sometimes by finding her new location through easily accessible and free public records. We can and must do more to protect victims. Currently, my office runs the Address Confidentiality Program. It is a little-known creation from 2013 that allows people with protective orders to have their addresses hidden when registering to vote. Instead, the state capitol is the listed voting address on public records. Only my office and the county clerk know their real addresses where absentee ballots can be sent so they can vote in safety. That's a worthy idea, and my predecessor deserves credit for it. However, it's time that we do more. The existing Address Confidentiality Program is extremely limited and has fewer than 50 participants statewide. Studies show some 45% of Kentucky women and 35% of Kentucky men have experienced domestic violence, a lot more than 50 people. There are two core issues with our current program. First, it only applies to a victim's voting record, so her new address will only be masked on the voter rolls, but still visible on other public records. Second, requiring that participants have an active protective order against an abuser can be counterproductive, as that process may reveal their new address to their abuser. And as noted, the vast majority of domestic abuse victims don't obtain a protective order. The General Assembly and I have worked together these past 3 years to modernize our election process and borrow good ideas from other states. This is another example. If Senate Bill 79 becomes law, it will bring our program in line with 38 other states that provide a comprehensive program masking addresses on all public records. Victims of domestic violence should know our office and the General Assembly have their back, and that our government will not facilitate stalking. Thank you so much.
Motion on the bill.
We have a motion and a second. Senator, you've been around long enough. Or you anything else you'd like to add?
Nobody needs to hear from me with a motion in a second. Thank you.
All righty. Do any members have any questions or anything? Look at here. And we still keeping our quorum too. So, Mr. Secretary, please call roll.
Representative Blanton.
Aye.
Representative Bojanowski.
Yes.
Representative Bratcher.
Yes.
Representative Dietz.
Yes.
Representative Dossett. Representative Freeland.
Yes.
Representative Fugit.
Yes.
Representative Gooch.
Yes.
Representative Hart. Representative Johnson.
Yes.
Representative Cook.
Yes.
Representative Lewis. Representative Maddox.
Yes.
Representative Massaroni.
Yes.
Representative Proctor.
Yes.
Representative Raymer.
Yes.
Representative Sharp.
Aye.
Representative Stalker.
Yes.
Representative Stevenson. Representative Tackett Lafferty. Representative Wesley. Chair Thomas.
Aye. Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to record a vote of yes for Senate Bill 79, please.
Well, it passes unanimous also. We will listen for it on the floor or hopefully on the consent if they revive it. So Secretary Adams and everyone,
you.
it's also great to see y'all, and we appreciate you being here this morning. All right, we got one more. Senator Turner, come on up and bring your guest. And I believe you all know the routine also. You're no stranger to this, so make sure the green lights are on, and please introduce yourselves for the record there.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm Senator Johnny Turner from the 39th District, and I'll let my guests to my left and right introduce themselves.
Sean Baller, the Executive Director for the Kentucky Association of Chiefs of Police.
Brianna Carroll, Director of Public Affairs for the Kentucky League of Cities.
I will, Mr. Chairman, with permission, I will give a little bit of a history of it and let them say any comments they may have to in support of this. This bill was started last term, but because of the change, we've added agencies that and necessitated this type of coverage. It got continued until this time. The bill says that after the effective date, the agencies who hire and train a police officer will have up to 5 years. Presently, it's 3 years, and they can recoup the application process, the training process, any cost for the salary, fringe benefits, or anything that they have expended to put that person in place to become a police officer for that agency. It covers now, with this new bill, the universities of any university, conservation officers, Board of Education officers, airport officers, and it provides a benefit for the people that pay, whether it be a city or whatever organization pays for these benefits, to recoup that on behalf of the taxpayers of that institution. So with that in mind, I will allow whichever one wants to go first to make any comments, Mr. Chairman.
This is legislation we've worked on for the last several years to bring it in line and get all these other officers around the state in there. We believe it's needed, especially to help our smaller agencies retain. It is permissible legislation, so it's up to the city or the state to decide if they want to enforce these contracts, but it does give us something in this current time where we're trying to recruit and keep people. It gives us just another tool, because what we're seeing statewide is, if I can pay a little more, I'll buy you out or I'll buy you out. So this will be very helpful, especially to our smaller agencies in the Commonwealth.
Yep, and we appreciate Senator Turner allowing us to work with him. Also provides clarity. There have been situations where some of the school police departments have hired city police officers and not wanted to participate in what we believe was already in statute. And so our taxpayers provide the funding for the training, and we want to make sure that they're getting their money worth, and so we appreciate support on this bill.
Motion on the bill.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All right, and Representative Fugit has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So let me understand this, Senator Turner. So if I'm a 21-year-old young man, want to go to the police academy and get hired on by the Hazard City Police, then if I sign a contract for 3 years the way it is now, then I have to stay there 3 years before I could better myself and go on to the state police, which pays more. Is that right? But this changes that from 3 years to 5 years. And would would I have to pay back if I went to the state police in 4 years instead of 5? Would I have to pay back the money that it costs the city police to have me trained? Is that what this does?
Thank you, Representative Fugit. I don't think you'll end up paying it back. I think the organization that hires you is going to be responsible for paying that back. We have, I forgot to tell you in the opening part too, we have surrounding states. Tennessee's doing it, I was told, regularly, recruiting officers that are trained here and then putting them to work in that state without any cost to that. But yes, whatever organization retains you would be bound by your contract to pay that back to the organization that spent all that money training you.
Okay, so one more question. So if the state police hired me at 4 years, the state police would have to pay the rest of that contract out. Am I understanding it right?
I'll let one of these, you want me to answer it or you want?
Either one of you.
Sir, it would either be if the state decided or the individual officer. They would know that going in. Usually what we see happening is the agency ends up picking up the tab if they want to bring that officer over, but by the statute, I believe the employee could be held responsible, but they should know this going in because you have to sign it then.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, we have Representative Bratcher.
Is this similar to a no-compete clause that basically time and distance? So what if their family's moving across the state and they're more than 100 miles away or 50 miles away, and they've been out of the police for a year now? Would they still be required to pay?
The statute says 5 years, and you got to understand that any agency can decide not to charge based upon similar facts. I mean, if you're working for a city and you move, they may not request that you reimburse them, but the agency that hires you is who you should negotiate with to get that money paid back, because they're not going to have to train you. You're already trained. And they know that the real thing's going to be here now is these Board of Educations that we've created as legislators to say that you're entitled to hire your own and form your own agency, and they're going to have to usurp officers for their institutions, and they can't wait till they get trained. So, I mean, it's got some things that should be negotiable between the two agencies, and I think that will happen. But there were so many officers that were going, like I said, that out of state was one of the big problems, and recruiting across the borders, and in-house also inside the state. So this is just a taxpayer relief plan to take care of the people that pay this to get some reimbursement back. And if you go make a contract with a new agency, they're going to ask you, I would assume, about this because it's all over the state. Has that been paid? How many years? and you could negotiate with the leaving agency and the agency that's retaining you to do something, and it's nothing to prevent that either.
And sir, to your question on the non-compete, no, that's not a non-compete. If you were out, if I think I understood you correctly, if you were out and want somewhere to work, no, that the contract would not apply. This applies to new trainees. This is not going to apply to a veteran officer who has done their time. This is only if we're putting you through the academy and investing all of that training into you.
I think one other comment: if you've been with them 5 years, you're done. No responsibility. You can go anywhere. That's what it's only going to tie you for 5 years, whatever amount that is that's been paid on your behalf.
Representative Blanton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have 2 quick questions. Very simple. One, if 2 agencies agree for this individual to come from agency A to agency B with no repayment, is it still required, or can they negotiate that themselves?
My belief would be that they could negotiate, and that is done at this time. That would be a question that they negotiate themselves.
Sure. Very good. Thank you. Second question is the 5-year period, and again, I guess this would go back to the agencies negotiating, but is it prorated? Let's say they stayed 4 years and then they went. Do they just pay a year? I guess they could if the agencies agreed to that.
Currently, it is not prorated for the cities and the counties. It is prorated for the state. The state is the one that loses money on this. Your universities, when they are trained and they pull them out of there, prior to the raises for the state police last year, they were done, all state agencies were done on, for whatever reason, on a sliding scale in the bill. This removes that sliding scale. So not only does it benefit the cities, the counties, but it's also could be a benefit to the state.
But again, it still could depend on the negotiation.
Yeah,
They
yes,
could
sir.
decide
Yeah,
to do that.
yeah.
All right, very good. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
We have Representative Stocker.
My question is there any sort of loophole that would get created if, say, an individual, is in this position for 2 or 3 years and then just says, you know what, for whatever reasons, this isn't working for me, this maybe isn't the right position for me, leaves that position, takes a position completely outside of this field for any amount of time, 2 weeks, 2 months, 2 years, and then decides at a later date they want to return to this industry? Is there any sort of, like, I guess, loophole that would be created if somebody takes a defined amount of time away from the industry? Does that make sense?
As I would understand it, the 5 years is going to still be there. Once the 5 years pass, there would be no liability owed. But that 5 years could be there. Because if you didn't have that, people could just do what you just said. Leave for a few months to get out of that and go somewhere else. So the 5 years is the catch-all. But still, as Representative Blanton said, it's negotiable if you do go to another agency. So it's just to protect the taxpayers for up to that time. And it's only the amount that's owed at that time.
I have a follow-up question, please.
Go ahead.
I just want to make sure I'm understanding this correctly. So does that mean that there's any sort of responsibility that's put on the new organization that is hiring? So if I'm bringing somebody in, is it my responsibility to see if they did not work a full 5 years, if they paid that out, so to speak, right? Like you're buying yourself out of a contract. I mean, this makes me think about cell phone carriers.
Well, if you make an application to any employer, you're going to fill out an extended application that's going to notify them of that. The only other thing that I've heard is that some officers want to just walk away and not show up. If they get fired, then they're trying to use that as a basis. But I don't think from a legal perspective that's another matter. But as a lawyer, that's going to work for them either. So you can't just walk away from it and not be responsible if you go to work for another police agency. It ain't going to affect you if you go to work some other job. It's just another police agency that retains you.
So is that a yes, that it would be their responsibility to follow up if a new agency hired somebody on to see if they had paid that out?
Yeah, well, when they fill out the application, and there's some police officers in here, they're going to ask you your past work history. The agency that's hiring you is going to know all that. And yes, they could contact that other agency to determine whether or not there's anything owed, whether you're totally released. That would be the responsibility of the agencies. And the officer that's been retained, I'm sure they're going to ask him how long, and they're going to have his records or hers. So it's going to be easy for that to be taken care of just by paperwork.
Great. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. By statute, I just want to add, by statute, you have to contact, if I'm going to hire you, I have to contact the agency you were employed with. So there is going to be contact there.
All right, Representative Bratcher.
I think this is a good bill and a great attempt at trying to retain police officers. My concern is that police officers they leave for a variety of reasons. It could be poor leadership. It could be poor pay. It could be an array there could be opportunity for promotion at another place that there's not at this one. So I see that there's, I agree with what you're saying, but I think on the other side of the coin, I think sometimes it could hinder the growth and the education of the officers that want to progress if there's no opportunity for progression at their small facilities or their small units.
In response to that, I don't think that's going to be a big problem, because the hiring agency is going to be tickled to death. They've got somebody already trained, that they're not going to be responsible for the training. So they're going to be more than glad to pay that agency that's done paid for this person a check rather than having that problem. So I don't see that it's going to be a problem statewide, because this is a statewide bill for all agencies that have officers. So I don't see that to be a problem.
Thanks. Thank you, Senator.
All right. If they're we've got one more.
Quick comment, and I will point out for the committee members, we currently already have this in Kentucky. It's 3 years. This is just extending it to 5 years. So this isn't something new.
That is correct, and it just cleans up some folks that got left out, that honestly people were just plucking officers out of there after they were trained because they were not responsible to pay anything, and it is a big drain on your cities, your county, and even the state.
And with the cost of salaries and expenses, training is 20 weeks. We have to hire them before. It's just coupled with that inflation and everything. So that's all that is.
Yeah, we added all these agencies I mentioned before, from airport boards, universities, to Fish and Wildlife, to cover all those boards that were school boards that's now retaining. I saw where one school board said it's going to cost them $500,000 to get their officers up and running and trained and all that kind of stuff. So it's going to happen to everybody in everybody's district. It's going to have impact if this bill wasn't passed.
All right. Seeing no other comments or questions, Mr. Secretary, please call roll.
Representative Blanton.
Aye.
Representative Bojanowski.
Pass.
Representative Bratcher.
Yes.
Representative Dietz.
Yes.
Representative Dossett.
Yes.
Representative Freeland.
Yes.
Representative Fugit.
Explain my vote.
Please.
I'll vote no, because I feel like 3 years is a good number where we're at. And if you got a young officer that works 3 years for a department and wants to go to a agency that pays $25,000 or $30,000 more, then I think he should be able to do that after 3 years. So I'm a no today.
Representative Gooch. Yes. Representative Hart. Representative Johnson.
Yes.
Representative Cook.
Yes.
Representative Lewis. Representative Maddox.
Yes.
Representative Massaroni.
Yes.
Representative Proctor.
Yes.
Representative Raymer.
Yes.
Representative Sharp.
Aye.
Representative Stalker.
Yes.
Representative Stevenson. Representative Tackett Lafferty. Representative Wesley. Chair Thomas.
Aye. All right, does pass. We appreciate you presenting it and being here this morning. Good to see you guys.
Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you.
Real quick, before everyone leaves there, Representative Sharp has just a quick comments here.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We've gone through this session here, and one of the people we need to recognize are the staff that makes our job so much easier. Without them, we could not be doing everything that we're doing. And I need to recognize Mark Mitchell. And Mark, are you in here?
He's right there.
All right, Mark over here. And then we got Jessica Zay and we've got Logan Schaff over here. And that's the staff for VMAP, and they keep us on time and on target, and I want to make sure that we recognize their efforts and tell you guys we really appreciate everything you do.
All right. Also, I want to take chairman's privilege. Thank you, Corianne, and please for the wonderful tour. We had a dozen of y'all that were able to make it over to National Guard, Boone National Guard yesterday. That presentation was phenomenal beforehand, so please convey our thank yous to General Lamberton, and we appreciate and appreciate the air flight too. So all right, we might have another meeting, but as of now we have none scheduled, but we'll see, and if nothing else, we stand adjourned.